Generally 没什么。你以为你是大牌，你以为干嘛又来？我的事，我的命，我的现在我要说够了，头了，受够了，想透了，受够了，上的够了，就是够了。受够了，别回头了，受够了，想透了，受够了，上的够了，我说够了。犯了什么错？你说你知错，希望我记过，我该怎么做？心中矛盾，我期望摆脱三番四次你重复压迫，希望你知道我到底有多少次其实忍受难过。朋友说过你人心堕落，我却让事实闪过。你在眼前，我当谎言说心中要祸，每天以泪洗面，感觉自己懦弱，做了那么多，经过多少弹错，我没在你人性突破，还是算了吧，该丢了吧，用不着藏在心里忍受。对牛弹琴，终究是为了什么？你以为你是大牌，你以为干嘛又来？我的事，我的命，我的现在我要说。
Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the Paper Tigers. We are joined here today by the cast and crew. So thank you for sticking around for the Q&A. If you haven't already done so, please put your questions in the little question box below the player. So can I have everyone in the room just introduce themselves, your name and your role in the film?
All at the same time?
Yeah, all at the same time. All at the same time. I will also introduce myself, which I forgot to do. I'm Selena. I'm the festival director. Y'all saw me at the beginning. Yeah, let's start with Matthew. Why don't you go?
Ha! I get to go first, guys. See that? Matthew Page. My character is Carter. That's it.
I'll go next then. Elaine Uy, I played Danny.
I'm Roger Yuan, and I play Sifu Cheng.
I'm Ron Ewan, and I play Hane.
I'm Beltran, I play bartender. Also, write and direct on the side.
You play bartender like during all scenes, just in the background?
Yeah, yep, everywhere. It's in my writer. Hey, PAAFF, hello. Thank you, Philly.
So can Bao, can you tell us a little bit about like how you started writing this film? Like what even inspired you to write a kung fu comedy film?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up watching kung fu movies. That was a great steady diet for us. It was growing up and watching Hollywood movies in the theaters, you know, James Cameron and Steven Spielberg in the theaters, but at home we would go find bootleg home videotapes of like movies from Asia and TV shows. So that was kind of like our different, you know, hamburgers outside and then noodles at home, you know, that type of movie diet that we had. And just, you know, always inspired by it. So I wanted to make some that kind of pay tribute to that, but also to kind of growing up and studying martial arts and the friends and the mentors that we made along the way, and have a story that kind of like captures all that in a loving tribute.
How did you get to meet everyone here? Like, what was the process like? Did you have anyone in mind? I know with Ron, there's this bit where he's got a wig and you know, like it sort of seems like that was very tailor-made, or that bit was very tailor-made for Ron. So like, how did you get to know everyone here, and were there any characters that you wrote specifically with someone in mind?
I'll take that second question first. You know, in general, just the characters were all collections of people that you see along the way. You know, studying martial arts, you're going to meet a lot of different people along the way, and many fun, interesting personalities that are quite different from each other and from yourself. So there was always some humor to find with that, but also, you know, loving tributes to mentors, like I said. And the thing about this movie is that we shot, you know, in different pieces because this is an independent film. So we, you know, had to do different fundraising and different Kickstarters to kind of get us through to even make it happen. So Roger came on early because we shot all those youth portions, or kind of the glory years, as we call it, actually 3 years ago. And you know, Roger and came in with a younger cast, and we shot that almost as its own thing. In a lot of ways, kind of set the template in the way to think about how the rest of the characters are going to grow into, and what kind of figure Sifu is for these tigers as they grow older. So in a lot of ways, that kind of like set the tone for a lot of things. But we also didn't know what the future cast was going to be. So it's kind of like an interesting way of trying to be open to, you know, the actors that we can have, but also just kind of what it can be. And that's kind of like an interesting place artistically. And then flash forward to last year is when we ended up having casting and finding, you know, the rest of the cast. And Ron is a good friend. Ron and Roger are good friends with Yuji Okamoto, our producer. And that was a conversation. So Ron came on earlier on that. As far as the wig and all that stuff, in the script, it was never really, it was never envisioned that way. It's only because I saw Ron's beautiful bald head, and I said, we have to do something. We have to do something about this. And Ron apparently has, you know, many I don't know, what would you call them, wig tailors or wig designers? But Ron had all these selections of wigs to show us and like audition. He was like, "Do you like this? Do you like that?" And he like sent me
Dude, I still have
So-
some wigs in my apartment.
Yeah, that's yeah.
He raided the
all
closet.
day with this. But,
Exactly.
no, but I
So-
had like 6 wigs. So I told Val like, "Yo, I got hookups with wig people," so which I do, and then I was sending them pictures to see if Val liked them. Yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah, and a fun bit of trivia, if the audience doesn't know, Ron and Roger are actually brothers. So it was a kind of a way, kismet. I almost think like kind of a destiny wave that this kind of connected, you know, all of us as a film family together for this movie. And Elaine came to us through our great casting director, Yumi Takada, and we loved, you know, what he was bringing, and we brought him on board. Matt, we had talked for a while, and Matt, if you all might know, is on is the star of the show Enter the Dojo on YouTube, and we were big fans of that show for many moons. And we had talked to Matt, you know, a while back before the movie was really like a real thing yet, and we were just kind of keeping up with him, and we always had him in mind to play Carter.
That is super awesome. Are you all like martial artists?
I'm a dancer. But...
No, now you shouldn't have said anything. Should let the audience just think that Ron and I were lovers or something, and he left. That would have been great.
Yeah. They can still think that. It's not too late.
I actually am a dancer. Well, I
am too, Elaine.
Nothing wrong with that, Elaine. That's
I thought it was like
nothing wrong
a
with
joke.
that.
Are you trying to make fun of me, my friend? No, I think out of the cast, I think I'm maybe the one that has the least amount of martial arts training pedigree. I have some, but certainly not to the extent of Ron and Roger and Matt over here, with his Enter the Dojo. I love it. But yeah, that's the extent of my martial arts experience.
So what was it like training or choreograph? Like who choreographed all these? Was it Bao? Were you in there? Like just no?
I'm at Crafties. I don't spend any time there. We have a great action director, Ken Kidwa, and his action team, Sam Loke and Kerry Wong, and working with all the cast. And basically, this is kind of the model, like a little bit more of the Asian filmmaking, where you have kind of a unit that handles action and designs action, just so it fits more like a glove in hand as opposed to kind of a consultant. And then the editor ends up, you know, changing everything. So we always were very true to, you know, making sure that the action design felt good, and also that they had ownership in cutting and controlling the tempo and all those things. So from soup to nuts, you know, Ken was action director in terms of working with the cast, choreographing, and then even editing the scenes as well.
And Bao was at the Crafties as soon as we were doing the fight stuff. He was like, "I'm out." He was on his laptop.
He's like, y'all got this. I'm good.
Yeah, you guys got it.
No director needed.
We're fine.
So we have an audience question actually quite related to that. So Latevin asks, loved this. So happy to be involved. Which fight scene was the hardest to learn? And which scene was the toughest to get through because of the comedy?
Oh, dang, that's a good question. So it's two parts, right? It's which one's the hardest, and then which one's the hardest because of the comedy, right? Those are the
Right.
two
So
questions.
which one's the hardest to learn and which one was
Oh,
the
yeah.
hardest to get through?
That's a good question.
I mean, anything with Matt was just a challenge because it's. I think you guys need to put out some kind of blooper reel because, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I remember just stopping and going, I'm just marveling at this the comedy that's happening between him and Ron and all that stuff. I think anything that whole second section, that second act, that entire sequence was really tough to get through, and because it was hot too. That room was so hot to shoot in. As far as choreography goes, in terms of what was the most difficult, I think certainly the stuff that I was doing at the last round. There was only because it was fluid. We kept adjusting things because we didn't know what the scale of the location was going to be until maybe a week before. So that was challenging, but it was nothing too crazy.
Yeah, I think as far as choreography goes, it was fun. I mean, the action team, they were just great. Sam and Carrie I've worked with before, and Ken was awesome. And, just we all had so much fun. So I don't think all that was pretty, but, I didn't have an extensive fight like Elaine's. But that was fun. As far as the scene getting through it, yeah, I wouldn't say it was hard. I was juiced up with Matt. Like it was just, yeah, Carter just made me want to crack on him and just I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the way the schedule worked out, we had been insulting each other for like a week and a half by the time it was time to fight,
Yeah.
So we've been picking on each other in all the different improvs, and then it was finally time to rock and roll.
I have to say, you guys were great. You guys were so funny.
Thank you.
Yeah, laughed so hard, and that was really, really mean what you did with the toupee.
Oh, I love that part so much.
Oh man!
For me, it was actually it was great working with the kids. So I had the younger kids, and then Yoshi, Peter, and Gui later on. And so I was actually, there was not much action for me on this. I just kind of like did more of being Sifu. So it was actually a lot of fun in that respect, and just kind of getting into being an actor on it, and trying to serve that relationship that Bao was speaking of with the disciples. So, and you guys, I had not met, obviously I know Ron, but I had not met Alan or Mike and Matthew, but you guys killed it. So I kudos to all of you.
This is great. This is like a ghost where, Sifu is really telling me I'm doing great. And the Danny's like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. You have no idea. It's like cathartic to actually finally talk to you.
Yeah, because when Roger and I were talking earlier, Roger was like, I haven't met any of the adults. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I realized like the entirety of the movie, you're just a picture.
Yeah.
So like that's really interesting how like the story developed in that way. But you're still so present as a character throughout the entire film that I just totally didn't realize like you weren't actually there acting as the Sifu.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to you.
Yeah,
and kudos to Bao for writing it the way that it was, because it was really powerful for sure.
Yeah, and even to that, we had we shot that beginning portion, like I said, separately. So we actually made kind of an assembly of those scenes, and then we gave it to the adult actors to reference and look at, and then hear the memories that are actually going to be your memories. And maybe Elaine and Ron can speak to that in terms of just being able to kind of do their preparation and seeing, you know, how the younger actors behaved and how they had shaped those characters and who they were younger.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really, really informative to get that prologue. You know, when we first started developing the characters and talking to Bao and doing a lot of improv stuff with Ron and Mikkel and myself, and even with Matt, when we were trying to get a sense of how things were grounded before, and you know, getting the sense of what the chemistry was and the brotherhood that they had was, I mean, it was insightful, and there was a organic nature to, in some ways, transferring that energy and that spirit to us, just watching them play and watching them, you know, have that sort of reverence towards Sifu, and all those things really play out. And at least for me, I used it as a huge source material, if you will, to really ground the character, and then really try to figure out where Danny is now, and to try to mark a difference between the two, a dissonance between the two characters, so that there is such a marked, you know, a specific difference between the two. Well, I can't speak for Ron, but I would imagine it would be the same sort of you know, ride that he went through.
Yeah, you know what you guys did, you know, with the kids and Raj was awesome, and for me too. It's like when Huge and Bao and I first talked, it was like, oh, comic relief, isn't this? You know, we're getting into it, and then when I read the script, it was just, you know, there's something beautifully sad about, you know, Hing and the element of the story, and for me, because he misses his brothers, you know, Danny and Jim so much, and he just lost to Sifu. It's like he's trying to hide all these things under, you know, jokes and other stuff, but he's actually a sad guy that's just looking for his brothers again, you know. And for me, that friendship that's established with the kids, and then with Yoshi and Peter, you know, and Guy playing our younger selves, and then the three of us, me, Elaine, and Mikkel, where I think that was what the most important thing, and Bao, like, you know, as far as like address that right from the get-go, is like we had rehearsals and improv, you know, so that we can, you know, get that bonding, so that you actually as an audience believe that we could have been bros, you know, and friends, and, you know, for all these years. So, and so that you guys can buy into the baggage and all that stuff. And I just think, you know, if it wasn't for Bao and the producers actually acknowledging that and giving us time and prep, you know, that was where we found the magic.
Yeah, I mean, that's for an indie film, and I'm glad the actors and all you guys were, you know, totally gung ho for it. You know, usually on an indie film, you know, rehearsal time is the first to go. Mm-hmm. And so what was very supportive that we had from the producers to keep that time, because all that time, you know, is not wasted time. It's very important to lay all the groundwork to get going, and hopefully, and it sounds like it's the audience can definitely relate to those relationships.
So we have another audience question, and this one is from Winslow C, who's 12. And they asked, did you actually all do Kung Fu outside of the movie?
I didn't. I thought it would be a lateral move. I was like, I've done karate, I've done jujitsu. How hard can Kung Fu be? Turns out really hard, actually. During the rehearsals in LA, I would go back to my hotel and I'd turn on the air conditioning and I would just lay there, just letting my body hurt from just doing Kung Fu, trying to learn Kung Fu 8 hours a day in a week. Just being like, I thought I was prepared. I thought I was in shape. I was not in shape, but I did love learning all of it. It was just quite a crash course.
Actually, you know what? Going back to the recent question about what the hardest thing to get through, I forgot. Me and Elaine were watching, you know, when Miguel first fights Matt, it was just Tiger, Dragon, Cock. I was so hard to keep a straight face.
That was difficult. I think you went through like the alphabet animal book where it's like every animal you went through. I was like, where's this guy going? Dolphin?
Yeah, I feel like there was only like 5 animals like written, and then they just started shouting out animals just to see what I would do.
Yeah. Whale, sea lion. I don't know, some other random stuff. That was really difficult. I think I already said, but for martial arts, this was my first time doing any type of kung fu, and you know, I tried afterwards. I even reached out to Kenny. I was like, hey, is there any way we could still work out and continue it? But you know, pandemic happened. But would have loved to have kept going with it.
So that kind of leads us into the next audience question, which is from Andy, and they asked, was the filming affected by COVID, and how will independent filmmaking change going forward? They love the combination of comedy and kung fu and would love to know what your inspirations are in this area. Is it Jackie Chan? Is it others? Wow. Take it away.
Okay, well, it's a big question. Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question as far as production and how things are. I mean, things are slowly getting back to work, and as even during pandemic time, so that there's kind of a way for it, but it's kind of slowly but surely. So in terms of like for our film, luckily we had shot last summer, and it was well before the lockdowns and the pandemic, so we were able to finish filming. We were able to do editing as well, but then we had the lockdown happened, but then we had to do remote work for our color and sound and post-production and all that stuff. So we did kind of catch the tail end, and we're still putting things together to kind of get things ready for our theatrical release next year. So it is kind of slowing down things and affecting things, but I think the main portion, we were very lucky to shoot and get everything in the can as far as, you know, with everyone, with a normal production, we were able to kind of get all that done before the lockdown and pandemic. So that was good for us. And what was the other part of the question? Kind of a general
What are your inspirations?
State of affairs? Oh, the inspirations.
What are your inspirations in terms of like the combination between comedy and kung fu?
I mean, I think it's all hodgepodge and mishmash. Like I said, I grew up, you know, watching a lot of Hong Kong films and Stephen Chow and like Jeffrey Lau, and like kind of like they always bent genre in a way that never they felt like they were bound to a genre, and it always felt free to me. Whereas I feel in the West, you know, there's always like, well, what is it? Comedy? Is that an action? You know, it's like it's very like about that. So I always loved in Asian cinema, it's a lot more freer and looser. So I guess that's just kind of like the things that I grew up on and seeing. So I mean, like Taika Waititi, I'm a big fan of his. Like his work is very fluid in mood and tone. And so as long as it's honest to me, I think it's as long as it's honest and feels right for the moment, that to me is more interesting than, you know, is this comedy, is it drama and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and I think all of us had similar tastes, right, guys? Because for me, when I first read the script, all those things hit me, you know, what Bao wrote, and you know, it's I think one of the things you said too, besides Taika, was Shaun of the Dead, you know, meets you know kung fu theater, you know, and it really there is moments of that, and that's why it's like this is, you know, a comedy, a drama, a heartfelt film with martial arts, and I think it's a special one. So.
For me, it was a little bit different because, as Bao was saying, it's like 3 years ago, and when I came in, it was more serious. He wanted Bao had wanted more of a traditional Chinese master, and my martial arts background, just you know, a quick introduction. I actually, when I was young, I kind of taught myself for different reasons. So I was always in search of instructors or different instructors. It was a case for me, like family didn't have the money or the time or the commitment to actually nurture that. And I had to kind of find that for myself. So in playing the Sifu character, I kind of idealized in my own head what a good person would be and how they would try to share, you know, as much as possible, and then, you know, kind of like trying to bond. And this goes with, again, going back to Bao, when I came over and met with the 3 young kids, as well as the older, you know, Peter and Yoshi and Guy. Bao had us all, the younger children as well as the older teens, meet up and formulate that kind of the bowl, the dish, to cook that dish together, you know. And so even doing the restaurant scene, that was a really kind of a nice, but also a very, very appropriate scene, because it was about building that camaraderie and feel. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just to kind of, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, what? Oh, yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing in terms of like where we are. You know, yes, we grew up on Asian films and love American, but this to me is a very Asian American film. You know, and that's kind of like, I think what we'll let the scholars decide and talk about it. But you know, just a case in point, you know, with Roger, I think there was a conversation about. I think you had a question of like, well, you know, do you want me to play this with an accent? And you know, I never had it in mind like with an accent at all. Like just speak the way you speak. And it has, I think it has a ripple effect that if a master of that period in that time spoke English, you know, in you know, a perfectly fluent way, you know, that creates a backstory that's, you know, very different than what we would say, you know, the Western gaze of what a master is and what that is. And, you know, for me, it was all about that freedom in a way that kind of reflected our experiences, you know, and we have many older generations that can speak, you know, very fluent English for many different reasons. Either they were interpreters or spies even. So that creates a whole nother backstory that, you know, is always very interesting. And so that was always the freedom that I wanted to give to our actors on that.
Earlier, Roger was talking about sort of the chemistry and the mixing of all of these characters and their stories. We have a question from the audience from Aaron, and they asked, everyone had such a great chemistry together. The rhythm of the comic timing and banter between y'all made it feel like you were really childhood friends. And I know that y'all had talked about that a little bit earlier. But what was it like getting to know each other and finding that chemistry?
I mean, I knew Ron. When was that? When did we worked together? Like over 10 years ago, I think, right?
Battlefield 4. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
2000. I want to say 12. Yeah.
Yeah. So almost 10 years ago, but that's really my only connection. But I really how the chemistry started for me was when we did those improvs in that first week, and you know, it's a credit to Bao to create that foundation organically through improv. And you know, when Mikhail joined the fold, and we were doing those improv exercises in terms of, you know, creating scenes that could have happened, you know, years before. You know, it created that, not only that bond, but it made it that much more real for us as actors to look back and remember those feelings that we had. And you could always lean on that, lean on those experiences, lean on those moments that were created in those improv moments. So I think for me, the foundation was laid down, and it was a strong foundation, you know, weeks before we got into production. So, you know, how the production schedules was shot, we shot, you know, the family stuff first, essentially with my son and my wife, or my ex-wife, with Jay. And then the guys came along, and it just became a completely different energy that came on set. And it's almost like I missed them. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be fun. So that, I think, translated to the energy and the excitement that we all had. You know, it was almost immediate. In fact, the first scene we shot together was the beginning of Act 3, which is we were at that the lookout point, and we were in some ways all breaking apart. And I just remember, you know, we're just finishing up the family stuff, but I just remember thinking to myself, watching Ron do his monologue, and I was like, damn, this guy's bringing heat. This is great. And it just amped it up, and it just put it in a different energy level. And that's the kind of stuff that I look for on a set, is not only is the organic chemistry working, but what's the professional chemistry like? And then when you've got someone like Ron, who is, you know, who wants to mine for every gold nugget in the script, and Mikhail's the same way, it just kind of feeds each other. And I think that's the chemistry that you see, is that, I like to say it's like the friendly competitiveness, but it's not competitive, but it's a thing where you want to be there for each other as an actor to be professional, but then you also start to root for each other as just people in general. And I think that's what happens, and again, it's a testament to Bao and the way he directed this and how he set us up for that kind of success. So that's my take, and that's my experience on the chemistry portion of the movie.
Yeah, I have to agree, and thank you, Elaine. And Bao, like even that first week when we did the improv and everyone met each other, it was really nice. And Matt was there too, and like even though I think Bao's first improv was like us at McDonald's, and our team. Matt just sulking there. I almost felt bad for Matt. I'm like, man, I almost felt like his hang. I can almost understand him. Like he was almost another extension of me, when we were doing the improv. I was thinking, damn, we really messed up to him, But then I think when we got to Seattle, usually when you work on sets, and all you guys know too, it's like you can work with actors, they're cool with you, but then do they really want to work with you like after rehearsals, after hours, and with Elaine and Mikkel, and Matt too, it's just like whenever someone said, hey, yo, let's go over this stuff and blah, 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 boom, everyone was there. It was like we had our notebooks, we went to the restaurant, we all cared because we all saw the big picture. I mean, it's just a beautiful story.
Matt, what was it like for you being sort of like, because I mean, you have a younger character as well, and you're seen in those retro videos in the beginning. And so like, what was it like for you to sort of create that chemistry with the Tigers as Carter?
I do remember the improv that we did in the rehearsal where like I'm sitting alone at a table, kind of like at a McDonald's or something, and they all come in and they're kind of purposely sit close to me, but only to make fun of me. And we kind of had that, we built up that tension, which, as Bao had explained, it was clear in the script also, sort of gave me that feeling of why Carter might have spent, a couple decades in the dojo waiting, hopefully, for the day that he gets revenge on these guys that he always wanted to be better than, but also probably kind of wanted to be part of the group. And also it's nice to hear that Ron felt bad for me. That didn't show when I showed up, because he just started in on my first day on the funeral scene, started in improvising insults. And it was my first day and I was nervous and I couldn't think of anything to say back, and he was just killing me. And so I've told the story on some of the other interviews, but then luckily we broke for lunch and I went off by myself and I was like, you can't let him beat you in the improv. I'm going to say this and I'm going to call him that. And I started trying to come up with stuff that I could come back at him at. And that sort of set the tone for the rest of the shoot, trying to have this competitive thing going back and forth, which was awesome. It was great fun.
What I didn't say in the other meetings was like after Matt came back from lunch and he, because, okay, I'll give you a little history first. During those first improvs, Bao was like telling me I'm not fat enough. I still look like I'm working out. I'm like, Jesus, Bao, I gained 35 pounds. Look at this belly. And no, you can't lift weights, can't do nothing. I just want to see flab. I'm like, okay, got about a week and a half. All right. So anyways, fast forward, I'm eating, me and Elaine are eating Dean Tai Fung. I'm eating extra soy sauce, extra salt, just bloating myself out. He comes back, Matt comes back, and it's just like, you look like a fat Mr. Rogers. I'm just going, did he just talk to Bao? God damn, that was a good one.
It was so good. There were so many great lines, man. There's even a part where we were at the dojo, at Matt's dojo, and it's the beginning scene and he's coming up with tea and they cut it out.
Oh yeah, there's some great moments there with Matt.
There were so many great moments where the improv was insane about like the tea mountains and the tea, and they're putting it in bags, they're carrying these tea bags. Oh my God, I was just
There's something about listening to like the whales.
Yeah.
And then I started making whale noises, but only because I could see Jesse on the camera team losing it. So once I saw that he couldn't handle, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna do whale sounds all morning. I'm just gonna every improv I'm gonna be like.
I gotta say, there's another moment too where your character it made it on screen where you kind of hold up and you wait and you say, "Yep, got Sao." But the moment, that pregnant pause that happens there, I think we all were cracking up because we're like, what's he gonna say? What's he gonna say, man? Oh, so good. Oh man. Good stuff. I miss it. I miss this.
About that. We have a ton of questions about Carter. And I also like while I was rewatching it earlier with everyone in the audience, and there's this part at the funeral scene, the first scene where Carter speaks Chinese and he's like Mo Lan Yong, which is like useless, right?
Yeah.
But like if you don't understand Cantonese, you don't know what that means. So it was just hilarious to me when Ron was like, what did you say? It was how like Carter, or not Carter, Matt, how did you like think of all these things? Did you have help from Bao, from other cast members? Like, was it difficult to learn Chinese?
Yes, they sent me audio recordings way ahead of time, and I thought I had them down until I had a whole cast and crew staring at me while I tried to say these things and I didn't even know what they were. And so I had more than one crew member, Jenny and a few other crew members, like saying it, or it would get right up to the point where I know I'm supposed to say it, and then I would just be quiet, and then someone would yell the line off screen, and I'd repeat it, and then they would say it again, then I'd try to get closer. And again, Ron is looking at me the whole time, being like, "What are you saying? Like, what?" And it's just because I'm so bad at it. So it was great. It was great.
What are you saying? What are you saying? So good. What do you say?
So these were all, so just to clarify to the entire audience, like these were real Chinese sayings, because I think that like when you watch kung fu comedy films, or just like comedy films that involve like a character like Carter, a lot of people think that the sayings are made up, and I just want to like clarify, like these are real Chinese sayings that are being said on screen.
I was saying what Bao wanted me to say. Bao, did you write those, or are they old? Are they sayings? Are they authentic? I never even asked. I was just trying to memorize them.
Just say the line, bro. Just say the line. Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Matt, you did a great job, because I was totally sold just by watching your eyebrows. I was
okay. Good. I work on those all day.
That's funny.
I mean, were they real sayings, Bao? Like, how did you? Are they taken from somewhere? Are they just things you made up? Like,
No, I mean, a lot of them are like kung fu proverbs and kung fu sayings. So there's kind of like double meanings between the kind of the Confucian sense, but also like the kung fu sense. So there's a lot of like that Carter would definitely spout. And I think one of the improvs that we did was we had Raymond Ma, who was Sifu Wong, like teaching Carter all these proverbs and aphorisms and stuff like that. So that was even just a little piece that we did of having them, that master relationship. Like, and Carter has to have ownership, right? He's not just saying it. Like he spent the time to learn it. He put the time into practice all these years. This is all in pursuit of revenge for the most infantile reasons, but he still put in the time to do all these things. So that was like, we really wanted to make sure that, he had ownership of that.
so Claire asked,
Was that Carter's rave music? Jesus.
Yeah.
so we have an audience question. Claire asks, for Mr. Tran, what is your real life opinion of people like the character Carter? In parentheses, white people who are obsessed with the Asian culture or the idea of an Asian culture.
Asia Files.
Asia Files. I am an Asia file. There's, it's also, a bit of ribbing and loving tribute, because I think the reality in martial arts right now is that, that torch has been passed essentially. Not a lot of Kung Fu is practiced in China or in Hong Kong as much anymore. And in fact, the great masters and the great disciples are, from other countries and cultures. And that's just kind of the reality. So in a way, it's just kind of like lovingly poking fun at that. But, you do get the occasional guy who kind of takes it a little too far, a little extra, and thinks it is all, great Kung Fu cosplay, and really like thinks in terms of taking on the like accoutrements is somehow the ownership. So I think it's all kind of like a blend of that. I think it's fun to tease, but I think it's also kind of based obviously, on a real cultural shift right now. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of riffing on that idea.
Can you talk a little bit about the decision to have Michael's character as one of the disciples, as someone who's not Asian American, as a Black person who is a very well-trained martial artist? Like, what was that like, and how did that casting go?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with martial arts. Again, in an Asian American setting or an Asian North American setting, when we practiced Kung Fu, it wasn't just Asians. Like I had my classmates and we all had people of different races and colors and genders, and it was just all like a big melting pot because they're all there for different reasons. You know, some of them are the cultural elitists. They want to learn Kung Fu culture. Some of them just want to bash heads. You know, some people have trauma, histories of trauma, and need to learn self-defense or working through those things. So it's a great, you know, mixing bowl of people who are there for the same reasons, but for different motives, you know. So it's a very interesting thing, and it's also a way to kind of pay tribute to, number one, kind of our history of Seattle, being where Bruce Lee first landed, and his first crew and his first group of students were very racially diverse, you know. So it's also kind of being, you know, just reflecting that kind of reality. So of course there would be, you know, some other race than just Asians that would be learning this. But maybe there's some, you know, baggage whether they felt really fully included or not. And I think that's Jim's journey as well, as far as like his character and understanding, you know, where his place in the family is.
So, unasked, amazing film, very nostalgic themes. The diversity of shooting locations stuck out to me. I loved all the shots of Chinatown streets and dim sum dining halls, which speaks to the real love and familiarity of the Asian American experience. Was there a location that you wanted to have in the film that was possibly edited out? Maybe talk a little bit about Seattle as the place of the location of this film.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Lee is in that DNA with Seattle. I mean, we were able to shoot at this restaurant, Tai Tong, which was Bruce's favorite restaurant. So after training, you know, he would just go across the street and go have, you know, a meal with his students there. So in terms of even just walking the grounds of Seattle Chinatown, you're going to see little milestones and markers of what Bruce Lee did. That was his old school over there, and this was, you know, this is a museum now to his memory. So, you know, you can't get away from that, especially when you're in Seattle. So a lot of that stuff just kind of like comes out lovingly in a way, and paying tribute to that. But in terms of just like the suburbs and also just where Seattle is, again, very racially diverse, and we just didn't want to make a postcard movie and just try to shoot the Space Needle and, you know, just that, but just actually show that the spaces that people live in and actually move in and shop and then dine. This is where, you know, we call home. So it's just a little more organic, and we're not trying to make a big thing of it, but by just showing it, it becomes a big thing. So
I have to say, if I can jump in, one of my favorite moments was being able to do that scene cooking in Tai Tong restaurant, knowing the history that was Bruce's favorite, and you know, being and his area that he sat in. So it was kind of like a bucket list item, I thought, you know, from my personal experience. So it was great.
and I think Harry, the owner, had taught you to make, like, I think it was Bruce's favorite dish, wasn't it? Like, you know, Mongolian broccoli beef or something like that. Yeah, and he actually taught you how to make that dish. So it was kind of a nice, you know.
It was wonderful. Yes, yes, lovely.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's cool.
That's awesome.
Do you still make it? Do you still know? Do you remember the recipe?
Yeah, I mean, I used to, well, part of my Chinese culture, we, you know, both Ron and I, our parents were in the business, so I did do that as well, you know, when I was younger, but it was nice to do it and have that connection, not only with the physical space of the restaurant in Seattle, but also that Harry was there to kind of help guide, and it was just the energy there, you know. So yeah, it was great.
And I think that's the other element that we wanted to kind of show. And of course, you know, Kung Fu is also very blue collar. You know, in times we think of, you know, this very erudite and sophisticated Kung Fu scholar who just like sits there and does calligraphy all day. But the reality of a lot of kung fu that's being practiced is, being practiced in garages and backyards, and passed, very intimately from personal contact, as opposed to, an anonymous, way of teaching, or a big group teaching. Is very personal, one-on-one. And a lot of these great kung fu masters, it's not lucrative, and it's not, a very financially stable thing, and they have to kind of do what they have to do, and they work in restaurants, they work, in any service industry, and around. So I mean, one thing, hopefully when you see this movie, you'll appreciate, and maybe the waiter that you walk by, maybe you'll think this person is also a sifu, because also a chef can also be called sifu as well, in terms of just showing something skill or some type of mastery. So that's kind of the bigger kung fu culture that we also want to show as well.
So we have a lot of questions about a sequel, specifically Washington asks, did the bad guy die, or is he still alive? And if he's still alive, will he get revenge? And are you gonna have a second movie?
I guess we'll have to wait and see on that.
We're waiting, Bao.
Yeah, apparently everybody's waiting for that.
Except King's going to be in shape.
Did you all have to exercise a lot, or not exercise? Oh, in Ron's case, not exercise, or this Bao was just playing God over here, just you.
The direction I got from Bao was that I was worried. I've said this before too, is that I was worried because I'm not, I'm rusty if at best when it comes to martial arts, but it lent itself to the character that he should be, far removed from the heyday of the time that he had, in the prologue. So in many ways, he was just like, do what you can, and it's fine. And that was it. It was like, it should feel as if someone isn't as sharp and isn't as skilled and should be 20, 25 years removed from that. So that's the kind of, training direction that we got from Bao, at least for me, for my character.
It's actually Elaine's fault that I had to gain all that weight, because Bao was like, look, dude, Lane's really thin. Okay, so we got that way. You got to be this way. So.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was worried too, because I saw Yoshi. I was like, that dude is big. Like, what is this gonna look? What's this gonna look like? But I do remember many times where I would ask Bao, I'm like, is there any way they could say something and comment about it, just to kind of as a joke, like with the orphans, the kung fu orphans in the swimming pool, that I would love to get that kind of ribbing, or through the Carter character, where he's like, what's wrong with you? Are you sick? You look sick. You're not sick. What's wrong with you? And that was, it was anything that would identify that passage of time for me. Yeah. That was great.
So we have another question from David R, and this one's for Bao. And David R asks, how was Bao able to write a film that both captured our childhood fantasy of Kung Fu and also the real relationships, and still make it an authentic life story?
Good question.
How did you do it, Bao? How did you do it, Bao?
You get an amazing cast and crew, and you let them cook. I think you write honestly. I think it starts with the writing, and I think in terms of just having the cast attached to it and bring what their experiences to it also adds on too. So to me, it's like a layer of cake. As long as you can hide where the seams are, whoever it comes from, and it makes it better, then it makes it better. And then that's kind of the way I kind of want to work around, and make and create, just being able to create an environment that everyone can do their best work, from the crew side and cast on down. Because I think it all influences each other. Like for me, I don't know for actors, but for me, when Wing, our production designer, created Carter's Kung Fu School in full, then you really understand just the weight of tradition, the weight of Carter, and all those things, and it feeds the performance, and vice versa. What they're doing also feeds the DP in terms of how to photograph the action, photograph the performances. So I think it's all just teamwork. So to me, I think it starts with people. You start with something you love, tell the story that you can tell as honestly as you can, but also find people that identify with it, and can be on the same page with you, and then it just makes it so much better.
Yeah, I think just to add quickly to that, like, you know, a lot of people are going to appreciate the story, the comedy, the heart in this movie, but what Bao also did with the martial arts theme, and, you know, I think most people in martial arts will appreciate, is the stories of the fights, you know, and the stories within, you know, Danny's last fight, and just setting that up and the slowing down. It's almost like, and people that maybe aren't in martial arts can relate to by sports. You know, if you're a running back or a basketball player, and you just see the holes open up, and you know they're going to attack you a certain way, but you know when to sidestep it, you know. So it's like that stuff really happens. Time slows down. Even like that fall from scaffolding, that stuff actually happened to me, and time did slow down. So it's almost like when you're in midair, and then it comes back, and for him to also to touch on that and also make it relatable through the martial arts theme, it's just hasn't been done in a while. I mean, now it's like we get the Bourne Identities, we get these guys, and they're already badass, and it's great. We all enjoy it, but we need more of this storytelling too out there.
It's also good to have, you know, just on top of that, just also like having your team that aren't always used to doing it as well, because, you know, we're kind of undoing martial arts genre in a lot of ways, and, you know, kind of breaking it apart and changing it. And like our editor, Chris Christensen, like, he's not a martial artist, he's never cut action stuff. So he was always very keen in challenging me and making sure that this was about the drama and something that would really connect through. And it's not about just the action, and just kind of making sure. So it's also having a diverse point of views and skill set from all our team, and it just makes it all better.
Another question for Bao. What was, sorry, this is from Kunal. What was the process of writing a feature-length script? And did you ever face writer's block? And if so, how did you get over it?
Writer's block happens all the time. You just have to kind of park your butt and sit and write. I mean, it's really just a habit. And I think it's just, even if I don't like to have a page count, you know, some people are like, I'm going to do a page count. I'm just like, here's 2 hours. I'm doing 2 hours today. If I get half a page, it's a half a page. If I get a lot, then great. So I don't like to put pressure on in that sense. It's just like putting in the time, but making it consistent. And, you know, hopefully you can get to a point. But then to me, it's also in the revision. The reworking, the rewriting, the re-editing is where the real work is. First draft is, you know, your vomit draft. But in terms of the writing, you know, it's just kind of the process. As long as you're kind of looking to figure out what you want to tell, and find the characters that can support that point and that story, and then go from there. So, you know, it's a lot of, you know, developing your craft on your own, and there's no like easy answer to that. You just have to keep developing your craft, but then also just parking your butt and writing.
Awesome. So my last question to everyone in the room is, what's next? What's next for y'all? What are you up to? And also, how can we follow your work? Matt, why don't you go first?
I've been working with a company that's trying to put together a Master Ken TV show. I don't know how realistic it is, but we've been putting together this kind of demo reel and sampling of all my other videos from YouTube, plus new stuff, and just trying to see if we can sort of shop that around. So that's sort of kept me busy. And if people want to follow, the primary thing I do is Master Ken on YouTube. That's it.
Yeah.
Roger, go ahead.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
I just I've been busy. So the other part of my life is actually doing action for film as well. So I just finished doing Dune, the film that's going to be coming out, or would have been released this December, but it's going to be pushed till next November. As fight coordinator, and then I also play a small role in it, role of Lieutenant Landville. So, and I absolutely loved working with Denis Villeneuve. So, and I think the trailer.
Can you say the title? We missed it. Can you say the title?
Yeah, it's something to do with sand and black water and
Dune.
yeah, called Dune.
Big ups to that. We're all looking forward to that.
Awesome. Ron. Do it.
Oh,
You're next.
Elaine. I'm currently, I just finished up. I'm in Hawaii. A film called The Wind and the Reckoning. It's about the leper colony in Hawaii in the 1800s. It's a beautiful story. Doing 2 Netflix animations, Monkey King and Ark. And yeah, just waiting to hear about some other stuff.
Yeah, I auditioned for Monkey King. I didn't get it. So I'm waiting for my voice wasn't deep enough. Can you make your voice like a booming voice? Yeah, you might want to call Ron for that. I have a show out right now. It's on Hulu. It's called Hellstrom. It's based on a Marvel comic book. It's spooky. It's we're a little past Halloween now, but if you want to get your horror, drama, supernatural feel going on, definitely watch that. And just like Ron, I'm up for a few things. Nothing is fully concrete yet, but once things to sort of solidify, I'll definitely let people know what's going on.
Last but not least, Bao.
Oh, well, I'm doing a re-edit of I'm doing a re-edit of the film, removing everyone but just the bartender. The bartender is just gonna follow the subplot of the romances, the crazy romances he gets into. No, well, actually, we're still a little bit still polishing up this film. We are getting it ready for our theatrical release next year. So I'm actually here in the middle of doing a sound mix and redoing the sound mix for the theatrical experience. So hopefully we'll all be ready and then be able to see this in a theater in amazing sound and picture and showcase that work. Virtual festivals are great, but hopefully you can share the word, spread the word when we have our theatrical release as well.
I can't wait for that, man. That's going to be exciting. I want to be able to experience this with everybody in person, just to be in the theater and just feel that energy. I can't wait for that.
Cool. So
Fingers crossed.
I have one last question. This one is from Tyler W, who I know who this is. So whose head is shinier, Ron's or Roger's?
Well, how many depends on how many whiskeys or how many wines are.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
He's in Hawaii, so I'd say his is shinier now.
Just from sweat, from Hawaii. All right, well, it was so great to have all of you here. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you for letting us have The Paper Tigers as our opening night film. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, especially the Paper Tigers cast and crew who also came out tonight. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
You say this kill, black and brown, and when will you talk about class in this story? The rest is allegory. Come together, unionize, see it through each other's eyes. No need to fight over supplies while workers save lives. They need protection too. What we gonna do? Organize our way through. And for those behind bars, we must fight hard. Global pandemic, endemic, systemic. No equality, no quality of life, of life, of life. Global pandemic.